Hey everyone, Danny here with the Addiction Prevention Coalition. We are back with another Facebook Live video in our Recovery Month video series. This is an exciting one. This gentleman we have with us today is a good friend of mine. I consider him a brother. Drew Callner, who has his hands in so many things in the recovery community. Drew's originally from Seattle. He attended film school. He was a U.S. Marine. He now lives in Birmingham. So guys, before we get into this, go ahead and share this video, share this with all your friends, get the word out because recovery is possible. This interview is going to be great. So go ahead and share this video. So Drew, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Let's jump right into it. So give us a little bit of a background. You grew up in Seattle, but now you're in Birmingham, Alabama. So walk me through that process a little bit.
Yeah, I get that question a lot. Well, basically, my mom's half of the family is from the South. She grew up in Birmingham, so I would always come here for vacations. I'd come to the South all the time. So, yes, me and my sister were raised in Seattle. I was there for, over 20 years, little stints of college here and there. But when she decided to move back here, my parents were split. I finally decided after, kind of getting into addiction and needing a life change, I decided to drive cross country to Birmingham, Alabama, and give it a shot. I never expected to actually live here. My plan was to come for 2 weeks, go into the military, and never come back. And it wasn't because I didn't like it. I just, that was my plan. And I lived here for 2 years, then went in the military, and now I've been out for about 10.
Okay,
and I've
great.
stayed in Birmingham the whole time.
Cool. So a little interesting fact about Drew. Drew and I met, I guess, a little over maybe 5 years ago at this point. Mm-hmm. We met at one of the awareness breakfasts that we had. And Drew's into film and videography, and so am I, and we kind of just connected on that level. And as we sit here today, I have the T-shirt on, End Heroin Birmingham. We sit in front of the board. These are all the names of the people who have passed away. We had this board out at our first End Heroin Birmingham walk. Interesting fact, Drew came to us a little over 2 years ago and said, we need to do something for the community. We need to have a rally or a walk where people can get together and we can bring hope to the community. And we were on board. We said, we're all about collaborations and we're all about the community coming together to help each other. So the End Heroin Birmingham walk literally was Drew's idea. So that's just an interesting little side note on how all this stuff has come together and how we're bringing hope to the community together. So I thought that would be an interesting fact to share. So tell me a little bit about the transition to go to film school and why you're passionate about film and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've just always been very visual. That's a vague way of saying it, but I've always connected and learned, through visual media. And I was obsessed with music videos when I was a kid. My mom has stories dating back to when I was 5 years old and having to pull me. I was inches away from the TV. Couldn't stop watching MTV. But I was just obsessed with how the music goes with the visual and the emotions that created for me, So I was always really into music videos and into videos. And then later in life, as I started becoming a teenager and whatnot, I basically learned that my grandfather and my uncle were award-winning filmmakers in California. When my dad passed when I was 11, I wasn't as close with that side of the family. And so I started to learn later on that this is actually something in my DNA, So film school was another effort of mine to really grasp something. I had tried college. I was just young and immature and addicted to drugs, But film school was my last-ditch effort. I knew I had a passion for it, and I just went all in with it. I didn't last very long in it. But what I saw is that passion is one of my few passions in life. So I never thought I would rediscover it, and it's been such a blessing to be able to be sober and dive dive back into something I'm passionate about.
So before we jump into this, I mean, you are the type of, you're a dynamic individual. You came out of the gate swinging. I mean, you got a huge documentary that you worked on. You put everything into it. It reached so many people. But before we get to that, and I know this is it's a sensitive thing for anyone. I mean, I was a heroin addict. You were a heroin addict. How did you end up becoming a heroin addict? I mean, just growing up and stuff like that. Like, what led you down that path?
I think the more drugs you do, I mean, once again, very, trying to put a blanket over a huge story, but like the more drugs you do, the more willing your moral compass kind of breaks down a little bit. So by the time it got to heroin, there were so many years of Oxycontin and other drug experimental use that I kind of just fell onto heroin, and I just realized, this provides the same relief and opiate surge that the pills were doing. So, but I knew it came with a price. I knew it came with a really, now you're talking about new areas of town that you have to go to and new people you're experiencing to deal with, and it's a lot more violent and crime filled, and at that point I just didn't have anything really built up in myself to kind of combat that. So I wasn't sure, it wasn't in my master plan.
Usually isn't.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about idolizing like Kurt Cobain and kind of these this drug culture. I didn't idolize that, but I just saw something that was cheaper and more powerful, and at the time I needed that need, but that need came with a very powerful price.
Yeah, it's so important, because when I was growing up, I did idolize that, especially with you being from Seattle. I mean, that was like the hub of grunge music and
Absolutely.
that cool thing. But there's nothing cool about it. I mean, I'm not sure why it's glamorized, but rehab and detox and withdrawal and death and, that stuff is just not cool. They don't tell you the rest of the story.
No, absolutely not.
So when we met, I guess 5 years ago, you wanted to get into videography again and just really jumpstart this thing, and you just kind of jumped into it, and you started a documentary called Recovering Hope here in Birmingham. As you involved so many people and organizations, and talk to me a little bit about that process. I mean, what was that like for you? I mean, because you kind of you didn't test the water, you just jumped right in head first.
Yeah, I've always had really like grandiose ideas like that. And in the past, when I've had to go to a rehab and I come out, like I'm just surged with this energy again. I just want life. I want everything. I'm not as concerned with money and all like kind of the material things. I want life. I want connection. I want to be on baseball teams. Like, I kind of jumped back into that, and what I saw was, I was going to these meetings and experiencing these people that had such an amazing story. I mean, you just don't meet people with stories like this just, in every day-to-day life. And I was able to tap into that because I was one of them. This is very personal stuff they don't normally share. And around that time is when mediums like Netflix and HBO were starting to show addiction a little more freely. And they weren't necessarily glamorizing the war story, but they were actually showing like, hey, these people are tough as nails. And they are pouring their heart out. And like it kind of became a little trendy, to start to show actual people in recovery. It wasn't a secret anymore. So I basically said, what if I just give this a whirl and jump into it, but I just make it for my friends. That was my way of being like, it's probably not going to be good enough for anyone else to see. So the first year was just to make something for my friends. I would use my friends, and it would just be something we could all watch, and fun thing for me to do. And it just kept growing and growing, and there were so many times it almost shut down, or my head got involved and I thought it was trash, or so many different people's opinions I was trying to absorb, and it would stir me different ways. It was honestly one of the biggest things I've ever accomplished because I saw it all the way to the end, and that's very unlike me. So it was huge. I'm actually still kind of shocked that it actually got completed with my track record, but there was just so much that went into it. It's much more than a documentary.
So, I mean, yeah, and now it's on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon. I mean, it's all over the place. You had a release. But things weren't always perfect while you were making this documentary, right? I mean,
No.
so you had shared with me candidly about an experience that you had that I think is crucial for people to know about.
Yeah.
Because so many people experience it. I've experienced it, you have, and most people do. And that experience is relapse. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about where your head was at. You're making this documentary and what happened.
Yeah, so I'm making this documentary, and I think what a lot of people didn't see was I started to be put in a light of I'm viewing the subject and they have the problem, and so I was seen as a director. In my head that started to build, and ego got involved, and around the same time I was also biting off more than I can chew with jobs and relationships and that normal swirl of early recovery where you just do too much and you really get out of the moment. And I got high, and the pressure got a little too high, and my coping mechanism was to reach out and try and just do just a small bit of drugs, just relieve the pressure just a little bit. But what happened was it was a really scary relapse, and it was only 48 hours, but it was one of the more scarier ones I'd had. That they say it gets worse every time you relapse. That is definitely true, and this one was really rough. Some good did come of it. Eventually I had to dive back into recovery harder than I've ever dove back into. But what happened was I stopped making the movie for anyone else. I just made it with the original idea from my heart. I stopped trying to construct, to make this perfect thing. I just said, life is so precious, and I'm going to follow that original direction. Call it God, call it whatever you want, but it did not come from me, and so I just kept on with that. Obviously I had to double time my recovery efforts, and that was actually a big part of the film that we didn't include. There was a lot of footage of candid moments of me getting back into recovery. There were moments of me not remembering how my way back into work. There was relapse causes brain damage, and a lot of people don't know that, and there was some really real stuff. But if we would have put it in the documentary, it would have been me as a character it would have become more focused kind of on me, and I wanted to focus kind of on the other 5 characters that were really kind of running the movie. So
Gotcha. And I remember the day I think you called me the next day or 2 days later and told me about that, and I just we used to have brunch all the time, and
yeah,
you used to say that I mentored you, and
you still do.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. I look at you and I get strength from you. I watch what you accomplish. Might get emotional here, excuse me. But I know, you're doing such great things. You're a get back up type of guy, and that inspires me. Yeah. So just want to share that with you on Facebook Live, so share it with everyone else as well.
Well, just for Facebook Live, let me just say, Danny's not just somebody I tag in Facebook comments or this and that, or he's not just someone I kind of reach out to because I work with the Addiction Prevention Coalition. You've been there for me on a very personal level, and a lot of people will say, oh man, if you got anything going on, call me, or if your head ever gets in a point, call me. But I think me and you really understand what that really means. A lot of people say that, but then they're not really ready to take a real phone call. Like, stop what you're doing. This person could be about to relapse or could be having suicidal thoughts. That's what a mental disease, that's what some of the phone calls you might be receiving. And so you've always been there, and a lot of people say that, but they don't walk the walk. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I love you, brother.
Yeah, love you too.
So as we wrap this up, tell us about your plans for future films. I know you just dropped a documentary about a boxer. You're doing all kinds of other stuff. So briefly tell us a little nutshell about what your plans are for the future, other projects you've worked on, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. So since Recovering Hope, that was such an emotional roller coaster for me. Not just the success, but also having me and my mom in it, and my good friends, you know. And the reach it got to was such an emotional toll for me. So I said, I want to keep filmmaking, but I don't want to do addiction. That was my thing. Like, it was just too much. So I did one on a boxer. It's called Fighting the Void, with a local boxer, Fred Weaver, and about his last year of kind of boxing and giving up pro boxing. It's really good. But in the recent days, I have felt inspired to start a second Recovering Hope. And there's already been a little bit of work in that direction. I learned a lot on the first one, you know, and the first one took about 3 years. I would like this one to be 1 year, you know, and just be a lot more tactical in my filmmaking decisions, you know. And other than that, I'm doing a lot of smaller projects, but still as powerful. Just did a video for Turning Point, and that was awesome. So I do a lot of music videos and nonprofit videos for fundraisers, just to kind of keep in the skill. But it's fun now because I can kind of pick and choose what film project I want to do. And pretty much, unless after something like Recovering Hope, unless it's touching on some level of real, you know, unless it's like, if I'm not about to cry in the editing room, I don't really want to do it, you know, and I might give up a lot of money by not taking those jobs. But once you tap into something that honest and that real, it's hard to do anything less, you know?
Yeah, I absolutely understand that. So you're going to be the keynote speaker at Journey Day, which is coming up soon. You've been doing a lot of speaking and stuff like that. So share with the folks at Facebook Live Journey Day what that's all about.
So Journey Day is this Saturday. It's from 9 to 4. It's $20. It's probably the best way you could spend $20. You know, they make apps to keep up with football scores, but they do not keep apps to keep up with people connecting and the education you'll receive from us all coming together and healing and just hearing speakers. So it's a really cool event. I actually didn't know a lot about it until my mom told me, oh, you're speaking at Journey Day? Yeah, Drew, that's like a big thing. Like, big thing. So I thought it might be something, you know, 20 people or something, but I heard it's the whole diocese, the whole Episcopal diocese coming together, and it's spread out, and so it's a really cool situation. You can register at www.thejourneyday.org, and you do have to register and come out. You know, one of the big things I asked Kathy Graham, who reached out to me to speak, I said, I'm willing to speak, but I have one condition, and I just don't want to tailor it anyway. Like, that's my only condition. That's the vibe I'm on in life right now. And she said, I think you're going to be surprised these people want real. They're a little bit cooler than you think. And I said, okay, Kathy, then I will get up there and I will rip it, and I will no holds bar. I will tell it how it is. So I'm just up there sharing hope and my experience.
So you're on some whole like Drew Callner unplugged, like is this like a throwback to Seattle,
Absolutely.
like Nirvana unplugged type deal?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
raw, unedited.
The problem is once you go unplugged, it's hard to.
It's hard to plug back in.
Yeah.
Trust me, they know that about me.
Yeah,
they're like, plug back in, Danny. Plug back in.
It's hard, and I think, you know, in this day and age, like people want authentic. You know, they really just want authentic. Like, everything around us has some sort of layer of deception on it, and so the best way I can do is just be authentic, you know? And honestly, it's just too hard to keep up with everything else,
Yep. Well, you are doing that. You're being authentic. So thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for
Always
having
love
me.
when you visit. Love you, brother.
Yeah.
So, guys, check this out. We got a ton of Facebook Live videos coming up. But before we let you go watch Recovering Hope. If you haven't seen it yet, Drew's documentary, you can go to www.recoveringhopemovie.com, or you can search Amazon Instant Video, iTunes, or Google Play, Recovering Hope. There's local people in Birmingham. I shot some of the drone footage.
Yeah, you did.
My name's on there.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm famous. And also check out Drew's personal creative page, callnercreates.com. If you need him for any kind of projects, unplugged, mind you, passion projects, give him a shout. So guys, stay tuned for more great Facebook Live interviews. Thank you for tuning in this recovery month, and we'll see you next time.